All right, it's Shark Week. It's Baldy. We got the big game. We've circled this game all off season. Niners, Eagles, at the Link in Philadelphia, where Baldy was just at. He was just at for the Buffalo Bills-Eagles game and marathon game. It's special game in the elements. Jake Elliott makes a 59-yarder to send the game to overtime, and then Jalen Hurts takes over. What a special performance by him in the second half. He had two elite quarterbacks on the field. What a football game. Baldy, good morning to you. And I want to start right here. We'll get to the Buffalo game. We'll get to the matchup. But I want to know, as a former player, we watched the Eagles defense be on the field for 95 snaps. Niners have had extra rest, obviously playing on Thanksgiving night. Now, the Eagles will be able to host the Niners next Sunday, so they don't have to travel. But how much of a factor will that be on Sunday? The rest and recovery, playing 95 snaps. Is there any carryover to that when it comes to playing the 49ers next Sunday?
I think so. Yeah, I do think so, Bonte. I mean, I was just talking to Kevin Byard yesterday, the safety for the Eagles. He played every snap. He said he was somewhere in the 90s. He said he thinks it was the most he ever played in a game. And that was after coming off a game against Kansas City on Monday night in similar weather, where you're playing on a rain-soaked field and your legs can get a little heavy. And it looked like the Eagles were sort of in some kind of a malaise in the first half overall. And then they snapped out of it in the second half, found some runs that worked, and then the two quarterbacks just took over. But I do think there can be a carryover to that, especially, with the 49ers having, 10 days of rest to prepare for this game.
Yeah, I know Bosa and the rest of the D-line that are starters averaged over 60 snaps a game during the three losses, and we're down to only like 35 snaps in this last game. And then you get the extra day's rest. I mean, how much does that factor in for the 49ers right now in terms of game planning, freshness? I mean, I know it's a regular season game, but this one feels a little different.
Well, it is different, Joe. I mean, I was there Sunday, and it was, you could feel the intensity just pregame, talking to Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and a bunch of guys around the field. I mean, and then the crowd. The crowd is, look, there's nothing against any other place. There's very few places like Philadelphia to come to play a game when they know it's a big game, when the fans know it is. And so the juice inside that stadium, it's going to be electric. It's going to feel like a playoff game. The Eagles have been going into, they went into Arrowhead. They took on the best of Buffalo, and they know what's coming. So, but, you don't know how your body's going to feel until it is game day, though. And do you feel lethargic? Do you have to force yourself to get yourself up? I mean, people just think, oh, yeah, it's 49ers. It's going to be. But, like, they've gone through a lot here in the last 3 weeks. And so there is no excuses. Nobody in Philadelphia will make any excuses. But it'll be interesting to just see how fresh they look, how fast they play once this game starts.
Yeah, we can't wait for it. Brian Baldy, presented by our proud partner, Golden State, serving the Bay Area for 3 generations. Building better starts with Golden State. When you succeed, we succeed. Visit GoldenStateLumber.com. Now, Fletcher Cox is day-to-day with the groin injury. He's heading to the Hall of Fame. He's no doubt a Pro Football Hall of Famer. They got these other two big dudes out of Georgia, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter. How can the Niners, with their run game, attack this Eagles defense? Will they be able to have success against this Eagles front next Sunday, Baldy?
Well, it's as good as those two players are. Jalen Carter is a freak. I mean, he is a phenomenal, phenomenal talent. And Jordan Davis played very well last week. But Buffalo ran the ball right at him, especially in the drive that took the lead in the third quarter. They went right down the field, run the ball at him. They're not great against the run, and they haven't been this year. I mean, if you just look at the statistics right now, it says that, they're 29th, they're 20th in total defense, and they give up some rush yards, but you have to earn them. They don't give them to you.
Right.
They've had a lot of changes at linebacker, and that's been part of the issue. But, I think Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis are ready for full-time duty. Carter's playing more and more as the season's gone on. He's an elite player, and so he's got tremendous size and balance. Jordan Davis is just a big freak. And so, you want to run the ball inside between the tackles, you got to earn it. You got to block those guys up.
Well, so then how do the 49ers match up with their offensive line right now and Brock Purdy? Because it feels like he doesn't get enough credit for how he evades the rush and how he kind of climbs up in the pocket to make a throw that maybe wouldn't be there if he stood like a statue. What's the matchup that specifically that you're looking at here for the 49ers when it comes to their front versus the defensive line?
Well, if I was Kyle, I wouldn't put my backup tight end on Hassan Reddick.
Thanks.
In the passing game. I wouldn't do that. Hassan Reddick, he just on my podcast last week. He's a local kid, great guy. He's putting up numbers right now. He had a broken thumb the first 3 weeks of the season, didn't do anything, but he's got like 9.5 sacks over the last 7 games. And then Josh Sweat on the other side and Brandon Graham. They've got depth on the edge, and then they can push you in the pocket with Jalen Carter, so they've got everything it takes to break you down. And so, look, you gotta slow him down up front. I think Brock Purdy is pretty good and pretty adept at edge pressure, coming off the edge and moving, sliding, finding an open area to get to make throws. But if the interior gets collapsed the way it can, that's the toughest thing for any quarterback.
Baldy, when you think about all the trash talk and all the chatter of the offseason after an NFC title game, we know where the Niners are coming from. They lost their quarterback, but kudos to the Eagles. That's what they do. They knock out quarterbacks. The New York Giants aren't apologizing for knocking out Joe Montana not once but twice in playoff games. That's what happens. That's what D linemen do. They go get the quarterback. They hunt. But how are the Eagles feeling after hearing the Niners talk all that talk this past offseason? We heard from Hassan Reddick yesterday, as Shasky just brought up here. But quietly, that entire team, do they feel like they didn't get their due for that win in an NFC title game?
Probably. But that was like, I don't know, 10 months ago. Like, it's just,
right.
It's so much has passed since then. The 49ers come in with the number 1 ranked defense in football. Mm-hmm. Philadelphia has not played well on defense. They've had a ton of injuries and changes. They're giving up a lot of pass yards right now. This is a totally different team. Hargrave plays for the 49ers now. Right. He doesn't play for the Eagles anymore. It's just different. I mean, you can listen to it. It'll be played up. There might be some bulletin board material from last year or this week coming forward. But really, none of that matters. All that matters is how these teams play on Sunday. We know that. They know that. And so it's about execution. I mean, the Eagles, Jalen Hurts had a quarterback rating of 7 in the first half on Sunday. He came out and he was unstoppable in the second half. The Eagles have done that a lot. They've kind of sleptwalked through a lot of halves of games. And then when they wake up, they look like they're unstoppable. So, they'll get Dallas Goedert back. That's been a big loss the last couple games. They're going to get Lane Johnson back at right tackle. And I mean, they beat a good Buffalo team without those 2 guys last week. 49ers struggled when they didn't have, Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel in the lineup. The Eagles found a way to beat a good, desperate team in Buffalo without those guys. Yeah. That's a credit to the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, the Kansas City-Buffalo wins back-to-back are about as impressive as you can find in the league right now. You referenced Jalen Hurts' struggles and that maybe the adjustments that they're making at halftime, waking up. I don't know what it is, but the broadcast on Sunday had kind of alluded to a deep thigh bruise that Jalen Hurts has been dealing with and maybe some knee stuff. He looks rigid early in games, and then maybe as the adrenaline kicks in or who knows what else he's taking, he does seem to loosen up. Why is he so good in the second halves? Because it's like a tale of 2 halves for this guy every week.
Well, first of all, I'm like best friends with this trainer, and I don't know exactly what's going on. And I talked to I'll see him today, but it's just they're very tight, very close to the vest on exactly what it's a bone bruise. It's not going to feel good at all this year. The guy is just a warrior. He's just a flat out warrior. And so they show him on the sideline all the time. He looks like he's just in some deep meditative state, like he should be in an ashram, not on a football field. But yet, like that guy's mental toughness and focus is unmatched. And so, like, he's just going to find ways to win. That's, his record is 25-2 in the last 2 years. He hasn't lost to a team with a winning record in like 15 straight games. It's an NFL record. And so he just finds ways. Now, that's almost cliche too, but he does. He finds ways to it's not rabbits out of the hat. He makes the plays, but he's just very, very talented, and he has undying belief in what he can do.
Brian Baldinger here on the Morning Russ on 95.7 The Game, breaking down Eagles and Niners, a massive, massive football game. Both sides of the table. These teams are stacked. And I'm looking at the wide receiver spots. Both have dynamic duels with Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But what makes this Eagles team special? Because you talk about not having Lane Johnson last week, and that was impressive. And Fletcher Cox getting hurt. A.J. Brown has 4 catches for 35 yards in the last 8 quarters of football, plus overtime, and yet they're still able to win these football games because they do have a Devontae Smith. What makes that tandem in Philadelphia so special, Baldy?
Well, Devontae's picked it up, since Dallas Goedert went down. They are a dynamic and creative red zone offense. Like both touchdowns scored that Jalen Hurts threw were in the red zone. And both plays, one was a pump and dump, but a pump and dump, like different than college, where he really had 2 vertical receivers to choose from. But they got Buffalo to bite just like they anticipated. The play to Devontae Smith, everything about the play looked like it was a run. Everything. Until it wasn't a run. Like, they're just very creative. I mean, if Kyle Shanahan is creative, the Eagles are equally as creative, especially in that part of the field. So you got that, where they're excellent in the red zone, finishing off drives. And then you have to account for Jalen Hurts, who's just a dynamic runner. I remember when Jalen Hurts was a freshman at Alabama doing an Alabama-Texas A&M game.
Oh, yeah.
Both teams were undefeated. Myles Garrett was on A&M. And I just made the claim when he was a freshman that I don't know how fast Jalen Hurts is, but he's as fast as he needs to be because nobody ever catches him.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in NFL games.
Yeah.
Like, I never see anybody catching him. Now, I know he's not as fast as Lamar or Kyler. I've never seen anybody catching Jalen Hurts. And so he's just a dynamic player. He made a touchdown throw to Zacchaeus in the back of the end zone. Nobody gets the ball over Buffalo's head. And, he scrambled to his left. He pointed like Babe Ruth was pointing, to the left field stands. And then he threw the ball up where I don't know how Micah Hyde didn't get a finger on the ball, but he didn't. It was just a perfect throw. He's a great deep ball thrower.
So, you're referencing some of the run game. When the Niners lose, they give up a lot of yards in the run game, or at least timely yards in the run game. NFC Championship game last year, Miles Sanders is the lead back. Gainwell killed them. They had over 150 yards. How do they stop Swift this year? Because he feels like he's running really hard on that off-tackle run this year. Because that, to me, it feels like it kind of starts their offense when they're running the ball.
Well, if I was the 49ers, I would cover up Jason Kelce because when Kelce pulls, he's the difference. Every single big run, including the game winner by Jalen Hurts, had Jason Kelce pulling last week.
Really?
And every big run.
Yep.
And then if you go back to the NFC Championship game, I can still see Kelce pulling and blocking Dre Greenlaw 20 yards downfield. Like if I was the 49ers and I wanted to really throw a wrinkle at the Eagles, I'd cover up Jason Kelce. The guy is just a phenomenal football player.
Baldy, is he the best
on the run?
Sorry to cut
when
you
he
off,
gets on the
Baldy.
move and on the run, Bonte, like the Eagles' run game just opens up.
Is he the best center to ever play pro football? Because I remember Dermontti Dawson. But I'm watching Kelce, too, and I'm watching your clips. And you talk about Drake Greenlaw 20 yards downfield. I'm sure Javon Kinlaw, Mook Dog, is having nightmares about that NFC title game going up against Chelsea Kelce. I'm not sure I've seen a more powerful, more dominant center in the game of football in my life, Baldy. I don't know. You've been around the game a lot longer than I have. You tell me.
Well, the Dwight Stevenson's the best I ever saw. I played with Ray Donaldson in Indianapolis, and he won a championship in Dallas. I mean, they were the 2 best centers I saw. And Jason Kelce does things that neither one of those guys could do. And he's tireless. Like, he never, ever wears down. But he's got things that he does in the run game that no other center does. And so there's nobody really close to him right now.
All right, let's flip it to the Niners because I feel like we've been slurping the Eagles long enough. I mean, we got CMC, who feels like he should be an MVP candidate at this point. Obviously, Debo's emergence the last couple of weeks has been totally a game changer for this team. Kittle, Ayuk, how do we attack them on defense? What's the recipe? Clearly, it's going to go through CMC, but how do you see this thing going offensively for the Niners?
Well, the Eagles have struggled to find a slot defender since Avonte Maddox went down. Looks like Bradley Roby is back now, but he's new. Kevin Byard is a starting safety. He's new. They're still learning their coverages and still learning to communicate with each other. Reed Blankenship is a starting safety. He's in his 2nd year. He's been in and out of the lineup. Darius Slay has been double moved this year, although, he can, when he gambles, he's pretty good.
Yep.
I saw James Bradbury last week bait, Josh Allen into throwing a ball and picked him. They're kind of gamblers, but they look like if the rush doesn't get home, that there's all kinds of places to throw the football. If I was the 49ers, I would attack that secondary in ways that maybe they haven't seen with route combinations and vertical stretches, but I would challenge them, especially the way the quarterback is throwing it right now.
Is it a big game for Shanahan?
Yeah, it's a big game. I mean, look, it's a regular season, but, right now the Eagles, like I know Howie Roseman and what he thinks about home field advantage. Mm-hmm. They had it last year. They had it the year they won a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Like this could basically cement home field advantage with the win by the Eagles. But if the 49ers win and they get their fourth in a row and they get to, 10-3, and the Eagles drop a game and they still got the Cowboys left in Dallas, I mean, the 49ers could look to steal home field advantage here. They've already thumped the Cowboys. So, if it came down to a tie at the end of 17 weeks and the Niners had, if they were all 14-3 or 13-4, whatever it might be, they could get home field advantage. So that's a big part of it. But I just think the 49ers have to keep stacking wins. Like, this would be their biggest win. Like, they won a lot of big games. Go to Jacksonville was a big win. This would be their biggest win. And then, not that they're putting together the Super Bowl parade in downtown San Francisco on the Embarcadero or whatever they run it. But you could start, striking up the band a little bit if they could come east and win this game.
Oh, the reason why I asked that, Baldy, is because in the big games that we've seen with Kyle Shanahan, whether it's Super Bowl 54, whether it's the 2021 NFC Championship game, whether it's last season, not challenging the Devontae Smith play the first quarter, that was a massive, massive play. We've seen Shanahan at times, I don't want to say he coaches scared, but maybe a little timid, non-aggressive. And when he's aggressive, all gas, no brakes, boy, the Niners are humming. But at times, it feels like he gets in his own way in big-time games, Baldy. That's why I asked that question.
Fair question. I'm sure Kyle hears the noise. I'm sure I know he's reacted to it when it's been brought up before. But, he'll have a good game plan. They've had 10 days to get ready. Players got to execute it. But look, in these moments, like the challenge, you can't say it's too early in the game. Like it was too big of a play. You've got to be, you got to get your head out of the playbook and you got to make big calls and big decisions. And that's kind of a challenge. Like Nick Sirianni doesn't do any of that. Yeah. He's just there basically, managing the entire game. His coordinators are calling it all. But you want to be the elite play caller and you want to do all that. You also have to be able to manage the game and some of the decisions that go with that. And sometimes guys can do double duty, and sometimes they don't do it real well.
Baldy, you referenced very quickly, the way the quarterback's throwing it, meaning Brock Purdy. I feel like he's playing really good. It wasn't his greatest game on Thursday, but he makes these plays where he climbs up in the pocket and he's just rifling the ball down the field with this anticipation before a guy's even out of his break. The 3rd and 9 to George Kittle, for example, was just an absolute dime, right on the numbers before he's even out of his break. I feel like this game is huge for him because the national media refuses to give him any credit. It's Kyle and the players around him. And yes, all those things are in place. But this guy's a really good ball player. So expand on why you think he's throwing the ball really well right now, because I feel like he is too.
Obviously he leads the league in a lot of different categories. But the most impressive category to me is yards per attempt. He's averaging almost 9.5 yards an attempt. That's a function of accuracy. Yeah, he's throwing it for 70% completion. But everybody is running with it as soon as they catch it. And that's the difference right now of where he's putting it. Like the touchdown throw to Ayuk into that zone cut. You could take a freeze frame of it and say, oh, he's wide open. He's not really wide open. They're squeezing that thing, and the ball is traveling through the air, and he hits him in the perfect spot. It's a perfect throw. And the Seattle knows that they're attacking the middle of the field. They're trying to zone it and take it away and squeeze it. Yet the throw just cuts right through it. Even Kyle said, I thought he was going to take the check down. I didn't think he was going to make that throw. But like I've said before here, Joe, the guy is fearless. The guy plays with no fear. The outside noise is the outside noise. Yeah. None of the players subscribe to it.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy doesn't care about it. The quarterback and the coach have a really good relationship. Whatever is said on the outside, on any of the talk shows or whatever else, It really doesn't matter. And I don't think Brock Purdy I don't think he could care less. I don't think he's trying to prove anything to any of those people out there, to me, you, or anybody else out there. I think the guy is just having a ball playing football.
The tush push. Is this the most unstoppable play in football history?
Sure feels like it.
Because it feels like if the Eagles get 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, it's an automatic first down. You're not stopping it. So my key for the 49ers defense is keep them at 3rd and 4, keep them at 3rd and 5. Do not get in the 3rd and short situations because the Eagles will extend that drive, Baldy.
I agree. It is the most unstoppable play in football right now. They're 13 to 17 on 4th downs this year, which is the highest percentage. A lot of those are push. I'm almost surprised when the Eagles don't go to it on 3rd and 2 or 4th and 1. I mean, sometimes they don't do it. It's rare. But what I saw on the stadium on Sunday is they had I forget what, it was a 3rd and 1. And the crowd just, like, it's like they know what's coming. And so they start gearing up for it. And it is pretty much unstoppable. You can't get to Jalen Hurts' legs. They protect him, and he's the strongest quarterback in the league. So it's and then if you put Mailata and Dickerson and Lane Johnson and Kelsey up front, they're going to get push. And so it's if you get to that spot, and look, you can't say, well, you can't let them get to 3rd and 1. Well, you can't legislate that. You just play football. If they get to 3rd and 1, you do what every team does, and you try to counter it as much you can, but it's pretty much unstoppable if they get to that spot.
Baldy, you lift weights with Lane Johnson. You've been in his gym. Did he ever tell you when they first came up with the tush push and when they diagrammed this play and Trady Kepp was like, hey, Baldy, you know what? We got this tush push, third and 1. The quarterback sneak is unstoppable. Like, it's taking the football world by storm. When did they come up with this concept? Because it's like, wow, no team came up with this in 50, 60, 70 years, 80 years of pro football?
Well, so I remember talking to the offensive line coach, Jeff Stoutland, about it. And he's like, Baldy, when Carson Wentz was our quarterback, we were 36 to 38 on quarterback sneaks. So, yeah. Wow. So then he just looks at me and he goes, is there a common denominator? That's it. Walked away. Well, Jason Kelsey is the common denominator. Like, it all starts with Kelsey. Yeah. So I've heard Jason talk about it a bunch. It's not an easy play because, A, you can't practice it. And B, the snap is very difficult because you're trying to get underneath this week, whether it's Kinlaw or Hargrave or Armstead. You're trying to get underneath them as you're going forward and get the play started, yet you still have to get the snap to the quarterback. So it's not easy. I've seen many teams fumble the snap. That happens a lot. But the key is how many reps they get at it. I mean, they get it every game. They can't practice it. And so they've got more live reps at it than anybody else that's trying to duplicate it right now. And that's part of their success is they get live reps on the short yardage and in the goal line every single week. Yeah. So they get a lot of practice at it.
Well, in the offspring, you see Washington do it, and then they go, the Washington College, and then they go to like a shotgun out of a fake tush push to that pivot play. I mean, that was crazy. So you're seeing some offsprings of it. Before we go, though, Shanahan's arrogant. I admit that. And I love Shanahan for it, and at times it drives people wild. Sirianni might be the most arrogant coach in the league in terms of his demeanor. What's his deal behind the scenes? Because I feel like he is a perfect symbol of Philadelphia sports in terms of like the slow motion pumping of the fists as the rain's coming down, doing this when a DB, makes a breakup. He drives me nuts.
Well, he gets Philadelphia, and not every coach that comes here gets it. So he gets them. I saw him on Sunday, and, he's from Jamestown, New York. It's just outside of Buffalo. He's a lot like Shanahan. Like, his dad was a coach. His brother was a high school coach. His other brother was a head coach at Washington Jefferson College outside of Pittsburgh. Like, he's just the son of a coach, and all he's ever done. Every vacation was a coach's vacation or a coach's clinic. So he's seen it all and heard it all his whole life at every level. And so he's unabashedly Philadelphia. He supports the Sixers, the Phillies. He embraces the culture. He embraces the fan base here. The fan base, like any fans that are coming in with those 49 jerseys on, like, honestly, beware. Like, it is the most unkind place in the world for a visitor to come and try to enjoy a game.
Oh, we
You
know.
don't say.
Well, we experienced it last year, Baldy. And if it wasn't my daughter's birthday on Monday, I would have been back there. I thought, honestly, Baldy, I thought about taking a red-eye Saturday after the Warriors game, flying to Philadelphia and taking a flight out, but that would have been too much of a. Not everybody could be Brian Baldinger, but my girl would have killed me. Hey, you're going to miss your daughter's birthday, your third birthday? I guess so. Hopefully it happens, and hopefully the Niners have home field advantage, but if they don't, I'm bringing my ass back to Philadelphia, that's for sure.
Well, it might all come to Philly, and you might all get back here. There might be another Eagle 49er game. This might be a prelude to a sudden death game here come January. That's for sure.
Baldy, before you go, because we're up against it, do the Niners have to win in Philadelphia this regular season so that they know in their heads they can win in the playoffs, or does that not matter?
I mean, that would go a long ways, but every game you get to the playoffs is just a separate game.
Right.
It's going to be a great flight home if they win, and they're going to feel invincible. And that, like Fred Warner told me 2 weeks ago, like we're ready for this run, Baldy. Like I think they're ready for it, but it certainly would. It would slay a lot of dragons. That's for sure. As you get ready for the postseason, if they could come to Philadelphia and win.
All right, 65% chance of rain on Sunday in Philadelphia. It could be nasty again. Niners got to navigate that. Where are you going to be at this Sunday, Baldy?
I'm going to be doing the Dolphins game in Washington, but then heading to San Francisco for next week's game against Seattle, and then I turn right around and do the Monday night game in Miami. So I'm going to see some good football here in the next couple weeks.
So
that Dolphins Commanders game's at 10 o'clock or 1 o'clock on the East Coast.
Yes.
Maybe you could get a quick flight to Philadelphia and catch the second half of the Niners game.
That's a little tough getting out of FedEx Field.
Yeah, it's true. That's true.
Being able to,
or get in the shower.
I might be there for the final series in the fourth quarter, but
that's true. That is.
See you, buddy.
That is tough. All right, Baldy.
Yeah, see you guys. Yep.
All right, man. Broken down Philadelphia from Baldy to the injury report. Recap Baldy on the other side.